Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my midlife crisis, where today we have a couple of articles to discuss about the ongoing situation at Bungie with all the layoffs. We've gotten a little more insight into kind of what's going on behind the scenes. Nothing, I think, too revolutionary, but still some things that I would like to discuss and that I imagine people are going to ask me about. So we're going to get on with it. Steven Totillo has an article on his site, gamefile.news. He gives you a small little chunk, but then you do have to pay for the rest of it, which I like. I'll do that, but like I don't know how cool it is to like pay for something that someone wants you to pay for and then just show everybody the article. So like I'm just gonna be a little cautious there. But if you want to read it, you can get a free trial and check it out for yourself. Nothing here was particularly revolutionary. We have someone saying, I think Sony overpaid for Bungie. I think Bungie sold things they were not able to deliver. That's corroborated a little bit in the upcoming article that we're going to be talking about. Sony, if you remember, bought Bungie for $3.6 billion a couple years ago. And we also have another claim over on IGN. It was apparently bad enough that at least one source described as a well-connected former worker went so far as to claim that Bungie faced dire consequences if the acquisition hadn't happened, saying that the alternate history is insolvency, the inability to pay your debts. Take that for what you will. Let's go over to the big boy article now. This is from Jason Schreier, who is a pretty storied games journalist, if you are not aware of him. And he has put out a big one, a big article kind of summarizing a lot of the things that we've heard about over the past couple of days, including some new information about what Bungie was actually working on, what the direction of the franchise is going to be, what direction Bungie is going to be going in over the next, I would assume, year or two. So I'm going to be reading a lot of this article, but I'm going to edit it down and just kind of hit some bullet points for you guys. The teams that were hit hard included audio, narrative, and player support. Audio has been one thing in particular in Destiny that has been A+, S tier throughout its entire franchise history, right? Like no one has pretty much ever had anything really that bad to say about audio design, sound design, music. So that's tough. Narrative, I feel like they were finally starting to get rolling, but then I could also see Bungie being like, well, we just finished up the story and we don't really know what we're doing just yet on the next thing. So like goodbye. And then like customer support, player support always feels like companies thinks it's super expendable. So I can see why that happened as well. Obviously upsetting to see all of these get hit hard, but it is what it is. Ambitious growth and some big misses led Bungie to lose money over the past 2 years, forcing developers to cut costs, freeze salaries, and shed hundreds of workers. So the article that came out on Bungie's website, I mean, that basically told the entire story. Is they overextended themselves and it wasn't working out, and that's why they had to fire a bunch of people. Like, they said it in that Bungie article, right? Jason is just kind of reiterating here, but they said exactly what went wrong in that article, which was actually kind of surprising that it wasn't just some like, economic downturn, blah, 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 blah. No, they said exactly what happened. Spoke to 10 current and former Bungie employees who asked to not be identified because they are not authorized to talk to the press. They described a company that grew too fast and tried to develop too many projects at once, spreading resources too thin rather than prioritizing its chief moneymaker, Destiny 2. I don't know how many times I've gone over to like this main point on streams whenever I've gotten like Destiny 3 questions or marathon questions or this questions or that questions. It's like the only thing that makes Bungie money right now is Destiny 2. So you would think there would be the utmost priority on it. And I'm not saying that it hasn't been a priority. Obviously, it needs to be the highest priority at Bungie. But still, like, dude, you're spinning off several too many projects with 1,300 people at your company with only one big moneymaker. And again, you're not making Riot money, right? I don't know how much money they're making, but you're not making like Riot money to have several projects. Pete Parsons saying he had failed to take accountability for his own bad bets and that he'd be overly optimistic in his communication with the staff. Some said Parsons and other company leaders spoke of Bungie magic, a confident mantra similar to ones preached by other elite game studios like BioWare, like Arcane Magic, etc. Why don't we take a little check-in on what happened to BioWare? Yeah, here's what happened. So they are making a new Dragon Age game. Their Mass Effect Andromeda game, I know, was not well received. And Anthem is still on the front page of BioWare.com. This doesn't even exist anymore. No, I think maybe you can still play it offline or something. But still, and Jason Schreier did an article on Anthem and its failings. I'm still mad. I invested a lot of time into Anthem, like pre-release, listen to all the garbage they told me about, like, yeah, it's gonna be this and this and this. And like the last capture event that I went to for Anthem, I could tell that like it was in big trouble because they didn't even have a damn stat screen on a game for looter shooter. No stat screen. So yeah, so it seemed like they were running by the edge of their seat the entire time. Just, it'll all come together. It's fine. And then the one time it didn't, all hell breaks loose. During early 2022, era of low interest rates and strong post-COVID sales across the industry, Sony purchased Bungie for $3.6 billion. Flush with cash, Bungie hired hundreds of new staff members and pursued a myriad of incubation projects, including mobile versions of Destiny, remakes of old games, and new franchises. Mobile version of Destiny. Okay. Remakes of old games. How old are we talking? How much further back are we going? New franchise. Like, I can understand wanting to do something new, right? But like, that's really that high of a priority? During one grim meeting in late 2023, according to people familiar, Pete Parsons told staff that the company had missed its revenue targets by 45% and was losing money. They delayed Final Shape and Marathon, laid off 100 employees. Again, this is all stuff that happened last year. Bungie executive charted a new course. Both Marathon and Destiny 2 received new leadership as Sony's video game unit replaced its CEO and laid off 900 people. Earlier this year, Sony chairman criticized Bungie, saying he wanted to see some more accountability. Evidently, that hasn't really coalesced either. Hopeful that the extra time on Final Shape would lead to a great product. And, I mean, arguably it did. I just recently checked Metacritic, and it is floating at an 89 on 29 reviews, professional reviews. So, and even the user rating is like 7.8, which I feel like, you know, I mean, granted, you probably have like a lot of people complaining about the server launch and everything, but still, it arguably was a great product. Critical acclaim had little impact on the deeper cuts that were already in the works at Bungie, as game file, the article that we showed off right here. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter how good something is. What matters is how much money it makes, right? We hear all the time about things that are like super, super good, but they didn't make enough money, so it doesn't matter, right? Something can be garbage and make millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they're going to keep making that thing because it keeps making millions and millions of dollars. Look how many people just bash on like Transformers movies over the past decade, right? Every one of those movies makes like $1 billion. So clearly there's some kind of demand for it. One of Bungie's big bets was Payback, an incubation project set in the Destiny universe that would shake up the formula in major ways, according to people familiar. It would pivot from a first-person to a third-person perspective and allow players to use the franchise's characters to explore a large world while cooperating to battle monsters and solve puzzles. The pitch took elements from popular games such as Warframe and Genshin Impact, which I found interesting because I thought it kind of felt more like a Jedi Survivor kind of vibe. That's kind of the vibe I was initially getting when I was reading, like, oh, and those games have been like pretty well received, right? Those kind of experiences. But to hear like Warframe, Genshin Impact, I was like, no, I mean, okay. I mean, you know, you're never really going to know until you actually see something in front of you. And this is also not Destiny 3. I think we talk about it later in the article. This is not Destiny 3. This is more of like a spin-off type thing that people would be able to play that could maybe get them into the franchise without directly like getting you into the first person game, right? I don't know how much this would have done to like bring in new players. It certainly would have been maybe something interesting for current players to experience some more story-based things and whatever. But in terms of bringing in brand new players, I mean, I guess we'll never know. Several internet rumors over the last few months suggested that Payback would be a sequel to Destiny 2. It was a significant departure from the two previous games, would have been perceived more as a spinoff. There you go. 2 months ago, Bungie canceled Payback to prioritize games that were more imminent, moving the bulk of its team to Marathon, targeting 2025 release. Company also plans to continue updating Destiny 2, although it will no longer pursue regular paid expansions as it did in the past, according to the people familiar. During one recent meeting, a company leader told attendees that sales of each expansion had declined year over year, including June's final shape, so they would be moving away from an annual release model. More on that in a moment. Some staff, they're optimistic about the vision for Destiny 2 under new director Tyson Green, a Bungie veteran who took the helm earlier this year. Tyson Green has been at Bungie for, I think, 20, 25 something years. He's been there forever. In the coming months, the people said Bungie will look to retain and attract players with smaller scale content drops modeled after Into the Light, a well-received update in April that added a new mode to the game. So, like, yeah, Into the Light was, like, really good. It was, I get that. So if Bungie can make Into the Light style content drops and they're also good, okay, I'm willing to see what you got cooking. The problem is that if you have an Into the Light style update and people don't like it, it is not going to be good times, right? Into the Light was really loved because the mode was really fun. People have been asking for a horde mode type experience for a while. You could get really good loot. I thought the shiny weapons were a great addition. We also got Pantheon, which was fantastic, right? They put a lot into the Light. And I don't know, like, what kind of other heat could you have to like build not only like another Into the Light, but like that's your potential new model for delivering content to the people who play this game. I'm a little pessimistic, just my attitude right now, because like Into the Light was such a banger and free, which brings up another question. How the hell are you going to make any money if you're no longer pursuing regular paid expansions and moving away from an annual release model, and all you're doing is bleeding money, right? Were you bleeding that much money from the incubation projects? Like, I mean, obviously they were, but what are you doing for money, man? Rather than selling the content, Bungie will aim to release it for free along with overhauls to activities that it hopes will appeal to hardcore players. Other vague plans for the future include a storyline that will feature characters and worlds from Destiny, or that Destiny has not yet explored. I think a lot of people are assuming this is going to be Frontiers, but this is, I mean, yeah, incredibly vague. Fans have wondered if Bungie might one day start anew with Destiny 3. Here we go. But such a project has not been in development, according to people familiar. Bungie is instead looking to create a smoother onboarding process for Destiny 2, such as a rebranding to attract new players who might be turned off by a game that can now feel impenetrable to those unfamiliar with its ample proper nouns, aka expansions. Those left at Bungie will now have to make do with a smaller staff, tighter schedule, and a company that looks significantly different than it did 3 days ago. Longtime veterans Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy exited this week, according to people familiar, as did several other top leaders, leaving lingering questions about the future of decision-making at Bungie. Receiving benefits that include 3-month severance, health benefits, said the people familiar, but just like last year's layoff, anyone who receives stock from the Sony purchase that is not yet vested will watch it disappear. Ouch. Well, I mean, okay, called it. I never really thought a Destiny 3 was happening. Again, I can, for the upteenth time, I can understand the desire for a clean slate. I'm down for a clean slate. I just didn't think it was going to happen. So Destiny 3, you can't really call it canceled because it never existed in the first place. Smoother onboarding process for Destiny 2, such as rebranding to attract new players. This needs to happen. Arguably, this needed to happen over the past several years. That was one thing. If I could go back and say, you know, change some of the things that I said about what Bungie should be prioritizing. I very often said, like, Focus on the people who are playing your game. Focus on the people who are playing your game. Make sure they're happy, because if they're happy, that means they will spread good news to other people, which will bring people to the game. And I definitely did not put enough value in the new player onboarding process. Like, if I was a CEO, like, that's what you would be grilling me for right now. It's like my bad bet was saying just focus on the people who are active on the game, make them happy, because if they're happy, they're going to bring people to the game. And that just didn't maybe happen as much as Bungie was really hoping, because like I mean, we've never really had like oh my god, 1 million players on Destiny. Like, we've never had that. We've had couple times that we can track on Steam where we broke 300,000, and those are both for expansion launches. The player base is still, it's okay, but it's certainly going to be dipping over the next couple of months, and that is cause for concern. And again, another thing for concern, how are you going to make money? How do I phrase this? So like a while ago, we knew, like, Bungie announced Witch Queen and Lightfall and Final Shape back to back to back. So we knew what was on the horizon, and we knew that like our time invested in the game would pay out to like it, or in these future expansions. Like, we knew that we saw the road ahead of us, and like we knew like, here's why I should stay invested. It's because they're going to do this, and then they're going to do this, and then they're going to do this. But now you're saying no longer pursue regular paid expansions, moving away from an annual release model. Now you have to answer the question of, why should people stick around, right? Like episode 2, episode 3, we kind of know those things, right? I think a lot of people will be, depending on its execution, excited for episode 3. I'm not going to spoil anything in case you've been spoiler free, but like it looks pretty neat. Without knowing past that, and without knowing any kind of a timeline, which I understand, like Bungie probably doesn't know much of a timeline either. I'm not like necessarily blaming them for not giving us this timeline when they don't even know it, but it's just an issue that like it doesn't matter, almost like the reason that you don't know the timeline. The fact of the matter is, people want some kind of a timeline so that they have a reason to stay invested in the game. And when you don't have that timeline, when things are so unknown, then people are like, okay, well, I feel like I'm just kind of floundering. I feel like I'm just treading water right now. That's the feeling that I feel like a lot of people are going to be experiencing. Not to mention, you have, someone asked me, how much do you think The First Descendant, which is a new game that just released for free, how much do you think that has stolen population away from Destiny 2? And I would say, like, maybe not as much as people necessarily think. But now, like, when more and more stuff like this comes out, people are going to look for a new home. They're going to look for something new to play. And look, there's still, like, the gameplay in Destiny 2 is still absolutely phenomenal. But we need that. We need that horizon. We need that thing that we can see off in the distance to be like, oh, I can't wait to get to there and stay invested. So yeah, I think that's like my big thing. And it's just like, dude, you just downsized. You're having trouble with cash flow, and now you're getting rid of one of your big revenue sources. I'm guessing one of your big revenue sources. I don't know. Like, we are kind of moving into this world where people are not necessarily willing to pay for like these big drops anymore. Like, I mean, I don't know how really true that is. I'm kind of just thinking of like Concord right now, which is a new game that's launching for $40. That's I believe mainly a multiplayer shooter. Like, so many of those already exist on the market and they're free. So like, why am I paying a big question is like, why am I paying $40 for something that like I can go experience pretty closely for free with like a different experience? Now with Destiny and its paid expansions, like, it is still in the MMO format-ish. WoW is still charging for expansions. Final Fantasy still, like, a lot of these MMOs, they're still charging for expansions, right? They maybe not are charging for like the base game. I'm not actually sure what WoW does, but I'm sure WoW is still making plenty of money that they can charge. I don't know. I'm just like, is Eververse doing that well? that they can afford to do something like this where there's no regular paid expansions. Like, I also, like, look, don't get me wrong, I wasn't expecting Bungie to keep up that 1 a year cadence. I should say 1.5 year cadence recently. Let's say 1 year. I wasn't exactly expecting them to just be like, here's Final Shape, and then we're just going right into the next 10-year story. I wasn't expecting something like that. So I was expecting maybe a little bit more variance in how they do these bigger expansions, these big milestone launches. But not like this. Not like completely moving away from these big tentpole moments. So now it's just like, what are you going to do instead? And like, I'm sure they're still having those questions being answered right now. I'm sure there's meetings going on after a bunch of their town hall meetings that I imagine they're having right now. As soon as they get back into the swing of things, it's like, what's going on? I mean, so I have seen a couple of tweets from people that are, you know, a bit more optimistic, from people still at Bungie. I saw Hops put he put out just like a tweet of a GIF of him or of a character putting another character on their shoulders and just like walking it out like he's gonna put the team on his back like Greg Jennings or something. And I saw somebody else tweet about, like, you know, don't count us out just yet. Let me see if I can find that. I don't know. I can't find it, but it's essentially just someone saying, someone who's still, I think, pretty high up at Bungie, just being like, don't count us out just yet. You know, let us, you know, we still got a lot of good people here, and, you know, let us try to get something done. I can't find the tweet. It was retweeted in a sea of retweets, and I can't find it. And I'm like, look, you know, I know there's a ton of people still at the company who really care about making Destiny something really, really good. And, you know, I'm tired of hearing about leadership effed up this, leadership screwed up this. And there's a lot of good people still at the company who want to make something good for players at the end of the day. And it's also kind of tough because, you know, I want to support like the people on the ground floor at Bungie, right? I want to, like, I still have yet to buy anything from the Eververse, and articles like this got me being like, maybe I start throwing them a few bucks, you know? And but then you might say, like, how, like, they just fired, you know, a whole bunch of people, and then a bunch of other people are moving to a different company. Like, why would you still want to support that? And it's like, well, guess what? If the less support that they get, then more people have to get fired because there's not as much money coming in. And then all of a sudden you don't even have a Bungie anymore. You don't even have a Destiny anymore. So it's like, it's wanting to support like the individuals and the developers and, like, you know, the audio guy and the designer and the engineer, and not necessarily like, you know, I want to support, I'm supporting Bungie as like a complete entity where leadership keeps messing up this and messing up that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't anticipate that we'll get a whole lot more information other than this. So I don't know how much more I'm going to really have to say. If you read my community posts at all, you will have seen that I'm going on break for a couple of weeks. This is just like a staycation. Like, I'm not like disappearing or anything. But I just need a break after 2 months of Into the Light and 2 months of Final Shape going super hardcore. I need to take a couple of weeks off. So I am going to be putting out some, I'm calling it Degenerate YouTuber August, where I'm putting out, you know, I'm putting out some like tier lists, and we're going to have another highlights and, you know, some other more like fun stuff, kind of celebrate the end of the Light and Darkness saga and all that kind of stuff. And so when I come back, probably around the start of Act 3, we'll kind of get back into the swing of things. You know, I'm going to do my 11-year retrospective, and after that, you know, we'll see where things are going. You know, I'll probably have a bit more to say in a month or two, and maybe this isn't as fresh, or maybe some more insight comes out from Bungie or anything like that. But it's, you know, I thought, again, like, I thought October to February was like some of the lowest vibes this franchise has ever seen, and this happened, and I'm like, okay, well, I was wrong. I feel like it's now this. They took some bets. They really did not pay out, and now people on the ground floor are paying the price for it, and that's really unfortunate, and that's really sad, and that's still going to keep happening over and over and over and over and over again, as it has all this year. You look at Dude, look at Intel. Intel just laid off like 15,000 people or something like that. Something crazy. I don't even work at Bungie, and I'm like, I've been in a haze for like 3 days now, right? Like, I know I don't work there, but I might as well like indirectly do, because like if the game is not in a healthy state, that impacts my ability to do my job, right? I'll have another. We'll talk in another video about like, you know, a bunch of. I've seen some notes of content creators. This is going way too long. I'm sorry. But we'll talk later about like, you know, other creators pursuing other paths and all that kind of stuff. My second channel HelloDatto, is going to be rebooted this month. I got some content in the works already. So if you're wondering where my variety content is, it will be over there. I'm not uploading any more variety content over here, but I imagine if you're this deep in the video, you're probably already pretty privy to that channel. So yeah, I'm gonna let you guys go. This has gone on long enough. Thank you very much for watching. I'll probably have maybe one more video on Solstice before I go on break into my little staycation for a couple of weeks. And yeah, in the next couple of weeks will just be some fun stuff, tier list, highlights, all that kind of stuff. All right. Be good, everyone. Take care. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.